Welcome to the Tyler Werner Show, discussing all the latest in Philadelphia sports.
As the Eagles' loss to the Cincinnati Bengals was kind of the last nail in the coffin, obviously we had a pretty meaningless game against the Washington Redskins. And I guess you could say the rest of the season has been pretty meaningless as you want to tack on now the loss to the Ravens. So now we're kind of in this mode where we're kind of looking into the whole theory of trust the process, as Doug Pederson said during the offseason with the Philadelphia. Do we trust the process that is led by Doug Pederson and general manager Howie Roseman and owner Jeffrey Lurie? And for what it's worth, this Eagles team finishes up against the Giants and the Cowboys. How about they just play some sort of spoiler role and just win a freaking football game to finish the season? How does that sound?
And now, here's Tyler Werner.
Yes, it is the, I guess, pre-Christmas edition, if we want to bring up it's Christmas, and the Eagles are not really giving us too much this holiday season, and we are looking at of course, the Eagles turn right around. They have a Thursday night football game against the New York Giants, which, again, for all intents, the Eagles were eliminated from the playoff race, obviously, seemingly a few weeks ago. The season became pointless in my eyes, and any playoff hopes were dashed and yada yada. So this is, again, another week where we kind of just break down a game and look forward. Just kind of, a couple games left in the regular season, year one of Doug Pederson, year one of Carson Wentz here with the Philadelphia Eagles. And it's kind of just, mundane. Another game, another loss in, a home stretch here of a season that ultimately started 3-0 and, of course, has resulted in a downward 2-9 spiral since. And, again, I mean, it just, that'll always, stick in my mind as far as I'm concerned. Until maybe this team is on a successful path, that's going to be a stick in my craw. That this team started guns a-blazing and defensively was very strong. It was a top 5 defense once upon a time earlier this season. And that is another area of concern on this team right now, where you only have a few surefire players on defense, and the highest paid player on the team has been underperforming, and concerns are raised about just how good the defense is and about the coordinator Jim Schwartz and what the job he's doing now. He was looking like, hero here in town. He was bringing back smash mouth defensive, in-your-face football earlier this season. And, of course, in recent weeks, that hasn't been the case. And offensively, I mean, again, don't get me started with how this team, it just continues to be lacking in the wide receiver position, and just in general, the coaching decisions that have continued to make me scratch my head and concern me as far as, is Doug Pederson going to, say this team does get on the right the path to the playoffs, say they do, in critical situations where a head coach needs to make a great play call or a logical decision, is he going to make the right decisions? Because again, this was another game. I mean, again, we talk another loss here that came because of a failed 2-point conversion attempt. At the end of the day, all right, this didn't mean anything. This game, in retrospect, it doesn't mean anything. All right, a desperate Baltimore Ravens team, in Baltimore that needs to win to stay alive, essentially, and keep their playoff hopes alive. You know, an Eagles team that is depleted talent-wise and, you know, in several positions, and at this point hasn't really had anything to gain since the loss to the Cincinnati Bengals that should have never been. But the Eagles didn't even show up to that game, and again, that continues to be a stick in my craw. So, yeah, in retrospect, this game, this loss, I mean, it doesn't really mean anything. It only, I guess, if we're going to use the sort of a semi-tankathon theory, which, not that the Eagles are tanking or anything, but the whole idea of, well, they're going to have better draft, better position in the drafts when they do draft, that is, in the rounds other than the first round, because the first round draft pick is going to depend where the Minnesota Vikings finish, which is right now a middle of the road team. So, yeah, I get this whole thing where, well, they can just win a football game. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day if they win or lose at this point, but still, when it still is frustrating when on 4th and 1, okay, or 4th and 2, whatever it was. And again, this just it kind of, and that's the thing, when we had Chip Kelly here, and when we saw what a disaster last season was, what a painful season it was, and just the numerous questionable coaching decisions that Chip Kelly made, and just the incompetence of him and that regime. And then they hire Doug Pederson. They bypass, all the, interviewing other candidates. It's no Doug Pederson. This is the guy, Jeffrey Lurie was supposed to have us convinced about this. And even though Howie Roseman was a supposedly not competent enough of a GM that he had to take a back seat to Chip Kelly and basically act as strictly the check signer and equipment boy or whatever it was. Supposedly, after taking the back, he was brought back as general manager. He reclaimed his position, so, which continues to show more wishy-washiness from Jeffrey Lurie's end. Doug Pederson was the guy, all right? He was supposed to be, kind of a drastic change from Chip Kelly, like a polar opposite. And in some regards, he has been. Whereas Chip Kelly was accused of passing by Brandon Boykin in the hallway at the NovaCare complex and not saying hi or anything to him. And, Doug Pederson hears this, I'm going to keep loving on Nelson Aguilar and this and that, and I love these guys. And you could slice it any way you want it. But I don't know too many coaches that are all lovey-dovey like that. I certainly know Bill Belichick, the archetype of head coaches to me. I don't think he ever would say anything like that. But anyways, this emotional intelligence theory. The whole.
You got to open your heart.
You got to open your heart ordeal. It sounds good on paper. I got it. But out there on the field, this year is turning out, it's probably going to end 5-11, which is alarming to me. And I know this team was in a lot of close games. More so their earlier losses in the season. And you know what? Yeah, they were in a lot of close games. A lot of close games that could have been won if better coaching decisions were made, better play calls were made. Certainly more talent was there that would help. But you look at a lot of teams, even bad teams, take the Browns out of this mix here, the 49ers, the Jaguars, a lot of these bad teams. These really bad teams. The Eagles are not an atrocious team. Although you could argue, they're 2-9 in their last 11. It's really that 3-0 start that kind of buoys that a little bit. But well, the Eagles are not the Browns, all right? The Eagles, they have a quarterback and a few strong defensive players and I don't know, they got a Ryan Matthews who in dribs and drabs is going to be a great running back, but he's not going to be an every week, every down back. All right? He had his best game of the season. That's great. But he's not that reliable for a full season. That's the history of his career, and that's kind of why San Diego parted ways with him in the first place. But again, we look through this season, and whether it was, just bad coaching decisions that any NFL head coach is expected to be more competent in making, i.e. the Dallas Cowboys game and the Detroit Lions game and just other games that were within grasp but lost ultimately, where the coaching decisions are very questionable. And play calls. This has been a topic of conversation too, ever since the Eagles season started to take a turn for the worse. Is Doug Pederson doing too much when he's calling the offense and he's also making, the decisions to challenge plays, timeouts, this and that, management of the game? Is he doing too much? Is he on the sideline sounding like that? I don't know. But it's just, again, to me, when it's just absolute malpractice. When you have, on that 4th and 1, for instance, you run a jet sweep with Nelson Aguilar, and you have Zach Ertz out there, the tight end who's supposed to make a key block. All right? Now, the personnel, all right, Nelson Aguilar on the 4th down. And, of course, he steps out of bounds. You cannot, on a play like you got to have better sense of where you are on the field. And if that happens on a 4th and 1, then it's clearly the wrong person is out there running the ball in the play.
Come on, that's terrible!
You're telling me. I mean, that's just gotta... Look, I know, again, I know the whole I'm going to keep loving on them and, you know, I love these guys and yada yada. But there's got to be a part of you there's got to be a part of your brain that has to know your talent or lack thereof. But seriously. All right. Problem one is Nelson Aguilar running this play here. All right. You might want to use a more reliable runner in this situation. And not Nelson Aguilar, who's just been, again, he's been a headache this season. Another Chip Kelly draft pick that you just scratch your head and wonder why'd we get this? You know, why couldn't we get so and so, or why couldn't they make a move and get a better receiver? You know, that kind of thing. Problem two, again, Zach Ertz unfortunately cannot block. And yeah, he can catch passes. Him and Jordan Matthews are their top two targets in the pass offense, which is a shame because they're both tight ends / slot receiving guys. But that's just it. Zach Ertz, at best, he's like a slot receiver. He's not a blocker, which is a shame. That's his weakness. And it's a shame that on a 4th and 1 play, you got to convert. And Doug Pederson has this play. He calls this play. Jet sweep with Nelson Aguilar on it, with Zach Ertz, the guy that has to make the key block. And obviously, just can't block. I mean, come on, Doug.
Man's got to know his limitations.
I mean, we know this team's limitations. We know these players' limitations. And you're in a play that is on a 4th and 1 that is already very limited. That has very limited chance of success and certainly didn't succeed. So again, I don't. It's just frustrating to see a call like this. And then, of course, the infamous 2-point conversion attempt at the end of the game. Carson Wentz, you know, that interception early in the game. After that, you know, this team was able to run the ball pretty well this game, which is odd because they were behind. But for the most part, you know, Ryan Matthews had his field day of the season. Which, again, is a shame because it's only once in a blue moon that he'll have a game like that. Other than that, he might be, yeah. He's had a few decent games. But again, whether it's, you know, a toothache or an ankle injury or sneezing and aggravating a hamstring, I don't know. But the guy, again, he misses games here and there. He's banged up here and there. That's how it is. He's not an every down, every game back. It is what it is. This is a running back rich draft coming up. Now, I'm not I'm not saying you use that first-round pick on one, because you have other positions. There are positions of need that this team can hopefully fill with that first pick. And as far as running backs are concerned, one of these... Why can't this Eagles team maybe, like other teams are able to do, like Tyreek Hill, the Chiefs, or Thomas Rawls last season, or from the Seahawks, they need to replace Beast Mode. Thomas Rawls looked pretty good. Why can't the Eagles be one of these teams? Like, it seems like every other team is pulling out somebody as a running back that does a bang-up job for him. I mean, why can't the Eagles? Why can't the Eagles do that? Where they kind of just find a weapon out of nowhere, or they develop one. They get a guy off the street. The Eagles, they're not. They just, for whatever reason, they just fail to do that. So I don't know, maybe later in the draft they can get. I don't know. That's a topic for another day. That's if you want to really fix the running back position. But again, the Eagles, they have a few backs that, I don't know, we'll see what they do with them. But this Eagles team has more dire needs. Of course, we know what they are. We'll take a quick break here. Of course, we got a little Sixers drama to talk about right here in the Tyler Werner Show. Nerlens Noel. Playtime. It's been a little interesting week here in the Tyler as we lead in to a Christmas weekend that is kind of going to start a little early with the Eagles taking on the Giants at Lincoln Financial Field. It's going to be a color rush night. I guess, and see what uniforms the Eagles wear. I think the Giants are wearing throwbacks. So we'll talk more on the other side. Right here in the Tyler Werner Show. Be right back after this.
Investigators are calling it the heist of the century. The grand robbery of Brady and Belichick's slow-cooked Italian meatballs, committed by some apparently hungry NFL officials who love their balls.
When I came in Monday morning, I was shocked to learn of the news reports about the balls and the process that happened between when they were prepared and went to the officials and went to the game.
As shocked as Belichick was of the news, perhaps Brady, the last man out of the kitchen on that Sunday night, was even more shocked to hear of the news of the theft.
I have a process that I go through. It's the same process that I always go through. When I felt them, they were perfect. I wouldn't want anyone touching those. I would zip those things up and lock them away, and that's what I thought I was doing.
As Brady and Belichick up the ante on their ball security, you'll just have to pick up a pack of their meatballs the next time you hit the grocery store and enjoy just how perfect these balls really are.
Tom's personal preferences on his ball security are something that he can talk about in much better detail than I could possibly provide.
Hi there, I'm Hank Hill. Well, I'd like to tell you what Strickland can do to meet your energy needs. You see, at Strickland, the customer comes first. It's kind of interesting, the word customer begins with C-U. Well, we don't see you as just another sale, but as a member of our team. I thought you might enjoy 7.5 gallons of pure premium propane. Strickland Propane, the customer comes first.
Number one box office attraction, number one WWE superstar, multi-time WWE champion, Brock Lesnar.
Time to revamp your office space, eh? Looking for an interior decorator? Look no further than Brock Lesnar.
Now that's the way a real man uses a sledgehammer.
Out with the old, in with the new. Give Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman a call.
Mr. Lesnar, you're the future of interior decorator. I think we're done.
Back on the Tyler Werner Show on this December 21st edition. Just in the days leading up to another Christmas that has kind of just crept up on us this year. And really, like, it's like where did this season, this NFL season go? Where did the fall go? Here we are at winter already. Playoff football is just around the corner. And of course, Sixers, Flyers in full force here. I mean, if you want to say the Sixers in full force, but of course the Flyers, the 10-game winning streak. That after last Wednesday night, 10 games in a row, the Flyers made it. And of course that came to an end against the Dallas Stars on Saturday as the Flyers fell 3-1 to them. And on Monday night, the Flyers take it to a shootout against the Nashville Predators, lose to them 2-1. And then another shootout tonight, this time against the Washington Capitals. But the Flyers got back on the winning track by winning in the shootout. And that's a tight metropolitan division right now with the Philadelphia Flyers and the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Rangers, the Capitals are in the mix there. The Columbus Blue Jackets, who they've played, a few less games than everybody else, it seems, but they've actually had the best winning percentage. So they're, the division right now is really a wash as far as where the Flyers sit and everything. So, it'll be interesting to see how throughout the winter here, the winter months, where this season goes for the Philadelphia Flyers. After that 10-game winning streak, now kind of a little back down to earth. Regulation loss, a shootout loss, and then a win tonight. So, see where things go in this coming week with the Flyers. So I just brought up before the break the Nerlens Noel situation, just briefly. And I will say, look, preface everything, like, when Jahlil Okafor was drafted, and, and when these other big men have been brought in here, Nerlens Noel has kind of done nothing but complained about the situations. At least Jahlil Okafor in the past has taken a more level-headed approach, like, look, I got to earn my minutes. I got to go out there and earn my minutes. Nerlens Noel, of course, on Sunday, he's missed a lot of games, obviously, because of a knee injury. And he only got 8 minutes on Sunday night. Or whatever. And Nerlens went in the post game, he was not happy about it. Couple expletives in the interview, and he said I shouldn't only be playing 8 minutes and yada yada. And for one thing, I think he thinks he's better than he really is. And again, I mean, it's one of these situations where, I guess you got to go out and earn your minutes a little more. And I guess to be fair, I think he kind of knows that there's a surplus of big men on the 76ers, and they need to get some more shooters in here. And there is some dealing to be done. And he knows he's probably the odd man out. Which, if you're the Sixers at some point, you deal a guy away. It was talked about in the summer, too. Who's going to, the Sixers going to deal out Jahlil Okafor? Or Nerlens Noel? Or were they going to, give Joel Embiid the hook? But they didn't do any of that. And I think, with Joel Embiid out there, and then you get Ben Simmons on the floor when he gets back from his injury. I mean, you just got to get some shooters in here. But then you got Jahlil Okafor and you got Nerlens Noel, who are kind of, odd men out. I mean, I don't know. Maybe see what they do with Jahlil Okafor. But, I mean, I kind of said a while ago, I mean, I guess in the summer when there was the rumors were running hot about dealing Jahlil Okafor away, or is it going to be Nerlens Noel, and it ended up being nobody. Well, on Sunday evening, Coach Brett Brown said Nerlens Noel was out of the rotation for the foreseeable future. But then on Monday afternoon, this has become a bit of a dramatic situation. Brian Colangelo, team president, he kind of backed off from the statement. Basically, it was not a benching. He just kind of said that it was, there's a lot of talent on this team and not everybody could play. And at some point you will see Nerlens Noel on the court. So then on Tuesday night, Sixers, they lose to the New Orleans Pelicans. Nerlens subbed in for Jahlil Okafor. About 6:50 left to go in the third quarter. It was weird because midway through this quarter here, the fans were yelling Nerlens and put Nerlens in. And it was followed by faint chants of "We want Nerlens, we want Nerlens," which, again, this is just weird. Because, unlike the, power ranking system here, if we want to do something like that here with 76ers players, Nerlens is a little bit further down on the totem pole as far as the last few years, the guys who have been drafted here by the Sixers. Between Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons at the top and Jahlil Okafor, Nerlens Noel is a little bit further down. But anyhow, Noel subs in for Jahlil Okafor. Brett Brown said that they got stuck. They were in foul trouble. Joel Embiid, he went to the bench because he picked up his fourth foul before Nerlens Noel entered the game. Ilyasova came out to replace Joel Embiid, and meanwhile Nerlens Noel came in to give Jahlil Okafor a breather and be a defensive spark. He was having trouble on defense this game. Rim protection is perhaps Nerlens Noel's best asset. So after the game, this, of course, Brett Brown said the Sixers have to improve on defense. Now, Noel was active. It finished with 4 points, 2 for 2 in shooting. But he was noticeably gassed by the end of the quarter, and he didn't play in the fourth quarter. And he missed the first 23 games with his knee injury before he played 10 minutes in his season debut against Detroit last week. He missed the second half of that game and sat out last Wednesday's matchup against the Toronto Raptors with a left ankle sprain. And then again, Noel returned to action on Friday against the Lakers, played his 8 minutes in the first half, and then he voices displeasure over playing so little. Coach Brett Brown basically said that Noel would not be in the rotation for the foreseeable future. So he sat that evening against the Brooklyn Nets in the first half of Tuesday's game before being inserted back into the rotation in the third quarter. So Coach Brett Brown kind of, with all of his missed time, Noel isn't familiar with a lot of the things Brett Brown is trying to implement this season, and as a result, they were exchanging hand signals on the court so Noel could figure out where to be. Now again, this whole fan reaction, I don't get it. Where these, we want Nerlens chants came in. So, again, a guy that might not be around after this season on the Sixers. Because again, you gotta deal stuff. I mean, they got obviously they got a surplus of big men. Bound to deal one of them, one or two away at some point. So, it's like they got to get a shooter in here. So, a shooter, or more than one shooter, for that matter. So I don't know. It's a rather interesting situation in the past week with the 76ers. As, of course, football season for the Eagles is winding down. And other than that, you got the Flyers. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Sixers basketball. Little drama in the organization. A little odd, to say the least. So, and again, it's kind of like the countdown to, Ben Simmons. When he makes his comeback, and then you got him in Embiid on the floor. Things get interesting then. But again, with Nerlens Noel, talking up a bit of a storm, and it makes it other teams out there where the Sixers might want to make a deal. It kind of makes, I don't know, does it put the Sixers in a less of a position of strength, giving them less dealing power, because they know they have to get rid of one of these big men? And you have Nerlens Noel, who, is not on the best of sides right now, I guess.
My God, are you still talking?
Yeah, who's not, I don't know, he's just not looking so hot right now, with complaining about his playing time. Where other guys, they just kind of roll with the punch. They just I gotta earn my playing time. I don't know. So, anyways, took a little detour there into the land of the 76ers. The Eagles, again, this Eagles season it's hard to believe, but it's winding down fast. And we're kind of, again, I say, look, this team, obviously there's nothing really to gain as far as playoffs or anything like that, as far as winning any of these games. I kind of sarcastically said a few weeks ago after they lost to the Cincinnati Bengals, they might as well lose the rest of the games this season. Now, I know you don't think that. That's not how you think. You don't go out and just lose a football game. Although sometimes I would argue this Eagles team has come out and given an impression like they don't care. Like that Cincinnati Bengals game. Where it's just like they're just out there to collect a paycheck. But nevertheless, again, my theme of the show, go out and win a frickin' football game. Last time you did that was against the Atlanta Falcons. And that seems like ancient history right now as far as I'm concerned. Alright? It's like when dinosaurs roamed the earth, for crying out loud. Because since then, this Eagles team has just been an embarrassment. When, first it becomes, you're in a good position here to assert yourself into the wild card picture. And they lost. And then they lost, to the Seahawks loss after the Falcons, that was understandable. Then they lost to the Packers, who were reeling. Then they lost to the Bengals in an embarrassing fashion, who were also reeling. And then last gas against the Redskins, they lose to the Redskins. And the Ravens, I wasn't surprised after that game. They made it competitive, all right? Just like they made the Redskins game, good. But again, questionable coaching decisions. Going for 2. Again, I don't... Well, I say again, I didn't really touch on the 2-point conversion a whole lot. The decision, whether or not I liked it. Apparently, a lot of people liked it. Apparently, Carson Wentz liked it. What's he going to... He's Carson Wentz, he's a great team player. And I don't think he's going to be the guy that says, no, that was I didn't like that decision going for 2 on it. What is he going to say? Doug's his guy. Doug's his coach. Doug's a good player, but I didn't agree with... First of all, Doug Pederson said in the press, there's a less than 50... If we go to tie it and go to overtime, we have a less than 50% chance of winning, he said. What does that even mean? I don't get that. Where do you get that statistic? You have a less than 50% chance of it. Maybe if you lose the coin toss and then the Ravens get the ball first, then it's less than 50% chance because a touchdown would end it. Then you're at somewhat of a disadvantage. But I didn't get it, that whole rationale. What's with this less than 50% chance of winning in overtime then? Really? Where did that come from? So, they didn't... I don't know. It's malpractice that even though they had a good drive there, it's just kind of malpractice that you, in a situation like that, in an NFL football game, that you push all your chips in the middle of the table there. and decide the game basically on that 2-point conversion, on one play. It's different when you're moving the ball down the field. All right, you can afford a play here and there that goes for no gain, because then you can make up for it. But if you're going to go for 2 in that situation, where if you miss it, you lose the game, you better make sure you get it. And they didn't. They didn't. And you could say the play was not executed, and you know that's what the play. But you gotta put the team in the best positions to win. That's just not. That's not the situation. Like, you just can't do that. That's malpractice. Now, if you tie it up, you go into overtime, you should be able to trust your team. Now, look, maybe you can't trust the defense. I mean, that's a whole nother story. But obviously, you're not thinking like that. You don't get the ball first, and the defense, that's a different story. But regardless, you got to think, offensively, we're moving the ball pretty well. We should be able to do enough that in overtime, we get the ball back. I trust that the way my offense has been playing, they can engineer a drive that ideally is a touchdown drive and ends the game then, wins the game in overtime. That makes sense. And again, you can engineer a drive, and maybe a play here and there is going to go for no gain. But you still trust that within 3 downs, you get a first down after those plays that maybe don't go for anywhere or go for very little. But again, when you put all your chips on the table on a 2-point conversion, and you got to get a short amount, if you don't make it, then game over. It's just not a good situation. And that's what happened. Now, maybe if this team was 8-5 instead of 5-8, maybe they don't go for it. There's that whole angle, but still, I just, it's like they're reaching for a win like that. It just, again, I think the way I think that I want to see this team as a playoff contender in the coming seasons, since, of course, this year, unfortunately, that went down the drain. And next year, I don't see what they do in the offseason and everything, but next year, I don't know where this team will be. So, my hope is that this team can become a playoff contender, though. It's hopefully in the next couple of years. And when that team is this coach, provided he gets them to that position and is coaching this team as a playoff contender, in future situations like that, is he going to make competent decisions? Is he not going to make dumb decisions? That's just. And again, as an NFL head coach, you get this job, you're expected to be competent. I don't want to hear this growing on the job nonsense. All right? Just like Chip Kelly. It's the NFL. You should be ready. And if you're not, then you shouldn't get a pass. But then again, this is the land of, you got to open your heart. And
you got to open your heart.
in the land of, I'm going to keep loving on Nelson Aguilar and yada yada. So, I don't know. Before we, wrap things up here, take a breath a little bit, and do something where we take a look around other teams at the NFL. Teams that are obviously doing better than the Philadelphia Eagles and are actually contending for the playoffs or have locked up a playoff spot and are maybe just looking to boost their position in the playoffs. Go around the NFL in what was week 15 with top 5 thoughts around the NFL as I wait for my NFL theme music there we go, to cue up and play. And so we take a look here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown. Top 5 thoughts around the NFL. Week 15 edition, ladies and gentlemen. Just a couple weeks left in the season, and it's hard to believe, to say the least. Alright, so here we go. Thought number 5. It was the Oakland Raiders this week, beating the San Diego Chargers, division rivals, 19-16 in a close game. Division rivals. Raiders moving now to second in the AFC at 11-3, and have retaken the lead in the division by having the best record now at 11-3. Again, this is a big step forward for the Raiders. Suffered a loss last week against the Kansas City Chiefs, their second loss to the Chiefs of their 2 games this season. But they bounced back and beat the Chargers. And have once again retaken sole possession of the division at 11-3. They could be looking at a first round bye. Thought number 4, the Dallas Cowboys, another team that bounces back from a division loss last week. This week they beat the Buccaneers 26-20, and they moved to 12-2. They're very close to locking up home field advantage. One more win will do it. As they're 12-2, the Giants are at 10-4. Who, by the way, that's my next thought. Third. Thought number 3 around the NFL, week 15. It was the Giants. His defense holding the Lions to 6 points. Giants get the 17-6 win. As I just kind of hinted at, they moved to 10-4. Essentially, they're a wild card team. I've been saying it for weeks, so that they're going to be the 5th seed. There's of course, that outside chance that if the Cowboys lost out and the Giants win out, the Giants would actually get home field advantage. But that's not going to be the case. At least the way I see it. But still, an impressive win against a playoff team that will be the Detroit Lions, winning that division most likely. Impressive win out of the Giants. Lions have been pretty hot too, so you got to hand it to the Giants there. And we'll see what happens on Thursday Night Football. See if the Eagles, who have nothing to play for as far as playoffs go, see if they can maybe play spoiler a little bit and get revenge of the Giants. Thought number 2, it was the Tennessee Titans stealing one from the Kansas City Chiefs 19-17, remain tied with the Texans at 8-6 in the division. Titans, Marcus Mariota under center, and DeMarco Murray. Could be seeing the playoffs this year as a division winner. See how them and the Texans finish. Again, the Chiefs were riding high, especially after that win over the Raiders. And Andy Reid's Chiefs kind of cough up this one here.
People, they
caught under some fire here. Caught under a little bit of fire. Caught some flack for this one. Number one thought around the NFL, Week 15 edition. It's the New England Patriots shutting down the Denver Broncos 16-3 in Denver, a place where the Patriots have struggled in recent seasons, and the Patriots have moved to 12-4.
To me, those balls are perfect.
Oh, I'm sorry, 12-4. They're 12-2. My bad. 12-2, and could again. They've locked up the division. They could another win might get home. By the looks of it, this team get home field advantage once again this season, like they did a couple of years ago and went to the Super Bowl. So that home field advantage for the Patriots can be a big deal in the playoffs. Oh, and 12-2. Not to mention, Tom Brady didn't play the first 4 games this season. Yeah.
This is the end of this subject for me for a long time.
Enough said. So that's the top 5 thoughts around the NFL that I had. Other games, other than the Philadelphia Eagles. A lot of playoff heavy. As far as these games go, teams fighting for playoff spots. And in some regards, to me, that's kind of what makes it the most wonderful time of the year in the sports world. Unfortunately, it's not going to be as wonderful with the way the Eagles season turned out, but nevertheless, it's always interesting when it comes to the playoffs. To me, regardless of who you root for, where you're from. Playoff football's upon us, and it's always a wonderful time, in a sense.
I agree.
So we're wrapping things up here in the Tyler Werner Show. Again, Eagles, Giants. See what happens. Again, the Eagles are playing spoiler here. Go out and win a game. That's what I've been saying. Just win a game. Win for the sake of winning. Beat a division rival. You're 0-4 in the division this year. It'd be god-awful if you finish 0-6 in the division this year. Let alone 1-5 doesn't look good either, but it's very likely the case. If not 0-6 in the division, which is not good. But I guess we'll get there when we get there. Talk about it when we get, talk about it next week on the Tyler Werner Show. That's the simplest way to put it. Until then, those who celebrate it, have a Merry Christmas. And we'll talk to you next time on the Tyler Werner Show. Thanks for tuning in as always.
I'm saying it. I was looking.